Welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Pastor D. Robinson. Every child deserves a happy home and a family. Our guest today is Daniel Nehrbass, president of Nightlight Christian Adoptions. Join in on us today as we discuss children in foster care in Orange County. Our issue is youth. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Just how many children are there in foster care today in Southern California?
Well, in California, in total, there's about 13,000. More than half of them are in Southern California.
Wow.
So there's any given time 2,000 to 3,000 children in Orange County and the surrounding area who could be in foster care system.
Wow. What types of children are there? What's the demographics?
Well, the children come from a wide variety of backgrounds. They come from the demographics of Orange County and surrounding area, as you would expect.
Yeah.
The children who do enter foster care are likely to have been from abused and neglected homes, so that's the background they're coming from. There's probably a disproportionate number who come from families in lower income bracket, but the children can range from birth up to 18 years old.
Okay. Where are they living now?
There's a variety of settings the children can be in. We do have group homes, such as the Orangewood Children's Home, and that's the largest one run by the county. But the goal is to get those children out of there as quickly as possible, in days if possible. So they go to group homes sometimes. I have a son who was 7. He was adopted from a group home where there was 4 other children who were living with a staff. And then, of course, another setting is a foster family. So a foster family might have 1, 2, or 3 foster children. So those are the variety of settings children are in.
Wow. What causes a child to enter into the foster care system?
Children enter foster care when there's a complaint from a teacher or maybe an extended family member or neighbor that they believe the child isn't getting the level of care that they really need. So there could be a complaint about either abuse or neglect, and that abuse or neglect could result from a wide variety of backgrounds or reasons. It could be that there's a mental illness or incompetence. It could be that there's a drug or substance abuse problem. So any number of reasons that a parent would really be unprepared at that season in their life to care for their child.
Yeah. Are you getting any pushback from the parents that someone may have called and said this person needs to be adopted and maybe need to get out of the home, and the parent says no, they're not going to get out of the home?
Well, I think the system is, they're hesitant to have children enter protective services too quickly. First of all, it is a constitutional right that people should be able to parent their children, right? So there's a legal reason they're careful about it. Another is we do want to give people every opportunity and the benefit of the doubt. And also, it's costly for the state and the county to have care of these children. So I do think they're reluctant to have children enter the system immediately. And that's why people really shouldn't refrain from calling if they do suspect abuse or neglect. My wife's a teacher. A couple times in her 17-year career, she has called CPS. And it's not like you're ending that child's life or their parent's life. It could be one among a dozen calls that result in an investigation to find out is the child getting what they need. So the first call isn't necessarily going to result in the child entering foster care.
That's good news. That's good to know. What are some of the outcomes of children in foster care?
Well, every year, about half of the children who are in foster care today will be reunified with their biological family. So there's a different outcome for the other half. Now, of those children who are reunified with their biological family, some of them will re-enter the system again, unfortunately. There's a case plan for the biological parents, and they're expected, let's say, to go to drug rehab or to go to parenting classes and to get a job and to resolve, if they're homeless, an issue like that. So the children may be reunified. A portion of them are probably going to enter back into the foster care system. Of the other half of the children, some of them will age out. About 20% will age out of foster care because they never found an adoptive family throughout their entire time in the foster care system. Some of them will end up in jail. Some of them will end up in an institutional facility, maybe perhaps because of a mental illness. And some will be adopted. Usually about a quarter of the children, maybe a third, can find an adoptive family through the foster care system. And it could be more if there were more families who were willing, because all these kids don't need to be aging out without having a permanent family. If we found more adoptive families through foster care, it would result in more adoptions.
Are you finding any you're hearing the rejection of the biological family, but maybe they're unable to afford another child back at that time or something. What are some of the reasons why the family would reject the biological family coming back?
Well, again, it's usually not a conscious decision. It's usually something that is an additional hurdle the family is facing. You're talking about the biological family in this case.
Right.
And so they may have a drug problem that they haven't been able to resolve. There may have been other reasons. Again, it could be mental illness. It could be that a parent is in jail, that the child is just unable to stay with their biological family. Sometimes a parent can be released from jail, regain custody of that child. They re-enter incarceration. The child's going to go back into the foster care system.
Yeah. Are there things that we as a community can do to help these children, help serve them?
There's several things we can do. One of them is, not everyone is called or able to be a foster parent.
Right.
There certainly are enough churches, enough Christians in this country that we could have a foster family for every child. But let's assume that that's not you. One thing people can do is support another foster family by providing respite care, let's say for the weekend, or maybe for a few days, to help a foster family regain their strength, regain their commitment. So respite care would be one. Providing material support for a family if they want to either give gift cards or Christmas gifts, or giving gifts for children who may have never received a Christmas gift or a birthday gift before. If they've been in a neglectful situation, could be the first time they're having a birthday party in their foster home, and a family could help give gifts to that child. They can pray for families who are foster parents. But obviously the big thing people can do is they can become a certified foster family. And that's really an outcome that we would like to see for Christians, especially, to see this as their calling to a child. Perhaps they're an empty nester. Their children have grown up. They've got a 4-bedroom house. They've got 2 grown kids in college. What are you going to do with those 2 bedrooms? Maybe you can bring in, for a 6-month period, 2 teenage girls.
If someone wanted to actually become a foster parent, I know there's a process. Explain the process to us.
So the process will begin with an application and verifying their identity, verifying their background. We want to make sure they don't have a criminal background or a child abuse background. So that's the first, is verifying their background.
Yeah.
The second would be a home study, which includes a social worker going to their home, making sure the home is safe. And some obvious things like knives are locked up, the pool has a cover on it, guns are in a locked safe, things like that.
Right.
But then there's an education element, and that's really the bulk of it. The majority, 80% of the home study process is education. We expect a foster family to go through 30 hours of education.
Wow.
Most of that will be in a group setting where we'll have families come to our office, and they'll go through a class, and they'll learn what they're getting themselves into. That's important. And then also how to cope with children in their home, and how to cope with the lifelong issues that come with a child who's been adopted.
Wow. What are some of the rewards? It sounds rewarding already, but just kind of articulate some of that.
One of the important rewards, Jesus said, "Let the children come to me,
Yes.
for to such as these belongs the kingdom of heaven." The reward is you get to be a part of the kingdom of heaven. Jesus said that anyone who gives a cup of cold water to these children in his name, they're going to be rewarded. They're going to be remembered and honored for that, right? So you may not have this child in your home forever, and if it's a short-lived, maybe you'll find that experience really easy and enjoyable. Maybe you'll find it difficult, but it's not about you, right? It's about the child. It's about your ability to be the face of Jesus to another child, and that you're giving that cup of cold water, except so much more. You're giving them a home. You're giving them love. You're giving them the image of a mother and a father.
Taking a moment to impact someone's life, man, can be a lasting reward for them. What about some challenges?
It can be challenging. My wife and I adopted 2 children from the foster care system. We fostered both of them, and in both cases resulted in adoption. They're not siblings, so it was two different cases. And our 7-year-old, he's now 23, very rewarding. He's an independent adult, doing well, gainfully employed. But I'll tell you, age 7, when he came into our home, it was the hardest year of our life.
Wow.
Absolutely the hardest year of our life. And it wasn't what some people might think. He wasn't violent. He never broke anything. He never hit anyone. He didn't connect with us. That's what was heartbreaking, is we would say, you did an excellent job on that assignment. Nothing. We would say, that was wrong. That was a sin. You shouldn't lie like that.
Yeah.
There'd be nothing. So the difficult part for us was the lack of connection emotionally. And so it's a variety of responses children will have from these difficult backgrounds they come from. But even though it was hard, it was good. Mm-hmm. And that's really the calling of a Christian, right? Not to do easy things or things that are convenient. We do hard things, but they can be very rewarding.
Yeah. I heard you say that foster care can lead to adoption, so that's good news for someone out there listening to you today. But explain to me the various types of adoptions that might be available.
Well, foster care does lead to adoption much of the time, but a foster family should not go into it fully expecting to adopt, nor should they go into it not expecting to adopt. It really is this middle ground where you go into it saying, if the Lord wills for this child to be in my home forever, I'm willing.
Yeah.
If the Lord wills to reunite this child with their biological parents, hallelujah. Yeah. So that's one type of adoption, foster adoption. Yeah. We also have domestic adoption. That usually refers to women who are in an unplanned pregnancy that make a conscious decision, a voluntary decision, to place their child with a family they choose. It's different from foster care, where the state chooses who will parent this child. In domestic adoption, the birth mother chooses the family. And afterward, there's an open relationship. That birth mother may visit her child who was adopted every Christmas, may go spend, let's say, Christmas week with the adoptive family. Wow. So it can be a beautiful relationship. One birth mother described her relationship, she's kind of like an aunt to her child she gave birth to that's being raised by an adoptive family. She still gets to see her child, but she's not parenting that child. Yeah. We have international adoption from 15 countries, and we also are the leader in embryo adoption.
Yeah. So Daniel, besides foster children, what other types of children are there that may be in need of a family?
There are children who are in the foster care system but are legally free for adoption. So people should assume that some children, their case plan is to be adopted. So that's one type. Another is there's hundreds of millions of children throughout the world living in other countries. Our agency works in 15 countries to help people adopt. And then, of course, there are children placed voluntarily at birth through domestic adoption.
Yeah. And where can viewers get more information?
Well, please take a look at our website, nightlight.org, or give us a call at 714-693-5437.
Daniel, this is certainly great information. I know you've helped some people out there. We'll be right back with more Joy in Our Town after this message.
Oops. Uh-oh. Sorry.
Get on top of it before they do. Every 24 minutes, tipped furniture or a falling TV sends an injured child to the emergency room. Preventing tip-over incidents is easy, inexpensive, and only takes 5 minutes. Learn how to secure your furniture and TVs to protect children at anchorit.gov.
Welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Pastor D. Robinson. Snowflake babies are a relatively new option for families. Our guest today is Daniel Nehrbass, president of Nightlight Christian Adoptions. Join us as we discuss embryo adoption. Our issue is family. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you.
So tell me, what is embryo adoption?
Embryo adoption is when a family who has embryos already created in frozen storage offers those embryos to another family.
So how many embryos are in frozen storage here in Orange County and the surrounding cities?
In Orange County, there's about 10,000 embryos in frozen storage. Nationwide, it's 1.2 million embryos. Those are 1.2 million tiny babies in frozen storage.
1.2 million?
That's right.
Oh my goodness. Can you elaborate on how or why these embryos were created in the first place?
Absolutely. One of the options that a family has when they experience infertility, and that's 1 out of 6 couples that do experience infertility, one of their options is to pursue in vitro fertilization. That's where the doctor will artificially collect eggs and sperm and create an embryo. And then that embryo will be implanted in the mother so that she can give birth to those babies later. Now, people will usually create as many embryos as they can. A family may create 20 embryos, but they don't want 20 children, right? So they'll implant some of those embryos, they'll give birth, they'll store some of the embryos, they'll try again, implant some more. When a family's done, they may have a dozen embryos left over. They don't want to have any more children. Now they're left with this question: what are we going to do with the embryos that we don't need anymore?
So what are they going to do with the embryos they don't need anymore? Why are they left over?
One of the options that they can do is destroy them. But as Christians, we believe that this is destroying human life. So another option is to donate to science. Well, that's the same outcome. If they donate it to research, it'll result in the death of that embryo. So one option then is to give that embryo to another family and let them give birth to this child. And then they can actually give birth to their adopted child. And that's what we call embryo adoption.
So why would people choose or not choose embryo adoption?
One of the reasons that someone who has those embryos created and is storing those embryos, they might not be comfortable with the thought, somebody out there is raising my biological child.
Wow.
This is a difficult decision for them to make. It's difficult for a husband and wife to come on the same page. And when our office receives those calls, we recognize that this is probably the most difficult decision that that family will ever make in their life, to let someone else parent and raise a child who's biologically related to them.
Wow.
So that's why some people won't do it, but then of course the reason they will do it is they look at their children who were born from that very set of embryos that they created, and they'll say, here are my children that are living with me and my family, here are my frozen children, I need to give them an opportunity of life. I've got to let them be born and grow up and live in a family.
Wow. Will the donor family ever know who received their embryos?
Absolutely. Our program is different from anonymous donation. Some people ask, why do you call it embryo adoption rather than embryo donation? And the reason is we have the families go through a home study just like they would for adoption. Then we match them with social workers. This isn't a Craigslist or that type of matching. It's not a Facebook match. This is a social work match. And then we have openness between the two families afterward. So the families who've adopted the embryos and who give birth will meet the family if they want to, or they could email each other, they could phone, they could send photos to each other, but they will negotiate the level of open relationship that they both desire.
Yeah. So you have these families that want to donate an embryo. What's the process for them?
The donor family gives us a call, says that they've got these embryos in storage, and we'll usually have those embryos matched with an adoptive family within a few months or a year. So we may be able to help with the storage of those embryos. We may be able to help them ship their embryos to another facility away from their clinic. We're going to ask for about an hour-long interview with that donor family. What kind of family do you envision receiving these embryos? Who are you comfortable with? Married or single, Christian or some other faith? Children in the home or not children in the home? Tell us what kind of family you would like to place with. And then we'll match that family with those who apply in our adoption program.
Is there any situations where their decision for what type of family they like really is not the best case scenario? Is there sometimes where you have to step in or your team has to step in and said, this is the best way we're going to go?
Every once in a while, but that's very rare. Most of the time, the criteria that the donor family has is very reasonable. Yeah. They're looking for a loving family. They want to know that this family doesn't have a criminal background, that they're financially stable enough to have a child, that they have a life expectancy, that they're going to be able to live long enough to parent the child. So these are very reasonable requests.
How about the adoptive family? What's the process for them?
The adoptive family will first apply through our website, and then there's a home study where the social worker will come visit the family. Just like with a typical adoption, they'll do some education. There's a course that we go through for embryo adoption specifically. Then there's a background check to make sure there's not a criminal background. and then a verification that the home is safe.
Yeah.
The next step is to match them with the donor family. And once both families agree, then we have a contract phase. Then after that, we actually ship the embryos to the clinic, and the mother will then go to her clinic and have a frozen embryo transfer, a medical procedure where the embryo is implanted, and Lord willing, a few months later, she'll give birth to her adopted child.
Have you ever had any situations where once that adopted child has been birthed, that the family has a change of heart, or some circumstances may change where they have to look at other?
No, absolutely not. We've been now doing embryo adoptions for 19 years, and we pioneered this field, and our contract is airtight and it's never been challenged in court. And aside from that, every state in the country recognizes that the person who gives birth to a child is the mother.
Yeah.
That's kind of the assumption, unless you can prove otherwise. If you gave birth to the child, you're the mother. So then there would have to be some document that says you're not the mother.
Right.
And of course that doesn't exist.
So who would be a good candidate for an embryo adoption?
Embryo adoption, it's very simple. It's for people who are able to carry but not able to conceive. So if you have either decided not to conceive, and some people decide not to conceive.
Right.
For instance, let's say they're in their mid-40s and they think the risk of some sort of hereditary disease or genetic disease is too great. Other people decide not to conceive even when they're young because they have a genetic condition they don't want to pass on. So a couple that's either unable or undesiring to conceive, but the woman's able to carry. She has a uterus, and the doctor says, yes, you could carry a pregnancy. They're the perfect opportunity or candidate for embryo adoption.
Wow, that's interesting. What are some of the risks that might be involved in that?
One of the risks in embryo adoption is miscarriage. And that's why some people choose not to go through with this program. It may seem, it is a great program because we always get people matched. We've never had a family we couldn't match. We've never had a donor family we couldn't have their embryos matched.
Yeah.
But every embryo transfer nationwide results in about a 45% chance of giving birth. So there's about a 55% chance that someone will miscarry the embryos that have been implanted. And some of our couples, they're just not ready to go through another miscarriage because we're talking about people who've already experienced multiple miscarriages in the past, likely they have. So if they're willing to risk another miscarriage, it's a good program. If they want to get off what we call the IVF roller coaster, and having the ups and downs of you're pregnant, you've miscarried, then it might not be the program for them.
In 19 years, Daniel, from start to finish, I know that you've got to have some successes. What is your success rate?
We've had 500 babies born through our program, so it's been a great cause for celebration. So that's certainly a success. Another tangible success is we and other programs like us have increased the donation rate of embryos. It used to be people would not do this. They didn't want to donate their embryos because they didn't like the thought of someone out there raising a child related, genetically related to them. Now people are comfortable with that idea because of the social work element that's been added to embryo donation.
Yeah. With so many children out there, man, in today's world, why is embryo adoption so significant?
It's a fair question. There are children orphaned in other countries. There are children in foster care. The simple answer is a woman can give birth. She can experience the joy of being pregnant. She can give birth to her child. This is something many women want, and it's not an either or. It could be a both and. My wife and I adopted from foster care. We also adopted from another country. You can adopt from embryos and give birth. You can also adopt from foster care. You can adopt from other countries. So you don't have to pick and choose. But it's the right program for those who want to experience pregnancy.
Wow. And are you getting any feedback from the community on any of this, these issues?
Yes. There's snowflake children all over in our community. When we have a booth in some place like the Orange County Fair, families will come up one after another, day after day, and say, I'm a snowflake baby. And some people may be wondering, what is a snowflake? Why do we use that term?
Yeah.
Well, they're tiny, they're frozen, they're a gift from heaven, and they're unique. Just like the embryos. They're tiny embryos that are unique, frozen, and a gift from God.
Wow. Tell me about a very close success story that you might know that you're maybe closely related to.
Sure, absolutely. one of the reasons people don't do embryo adoption is they're afraid, as I said, of the chances of success, of miscarriage or of carrying to term. And so some people will say, if you have one embryo or two embryos transferred, it's not enough, especially if they're not a high quality embryo. We had a woman who had two embryos transferred. Both were considered by doctors low quality embryos.
Wow.
She gave birth to 3 children.
Wow.
First, she had one embryo survive, and the other one split. She gave birth to twins. So she got 3 babies from 2 embryos. That's a success.
3 for the price of 2.
That's right.
That's great. That's amazing. So if viewers wanting to get more information on this, how can they do that? How can they learn more?
Please go to snowflakes.org or give us a call at 714-693-5437. Check out our website, nightlight.org.
You know, Daniel, what would you say to that person that maybe be borderline, wanting to participate, wanting to get more involved, but just not sure because of they're hearing about the miscarriages out there? What would you say to that?
Well, one of the things they could do is begin the home study process, because if they do a home study, they could have a variety of options afterward. Maybe they would choose domestic adoption. Maybe they stick with embryo adoption. Maybe they choose international adoption. So that home study is the first step, and it's an education process where their social worker can help them decide which type of adoption really is best for you.
Yeah. In Snowflakes, when you have the children coming through the program, is there an age limit on any of them that would like to desire to have that embryo?
Okay, for our prospective adoptive parents.
Adoptive parents.
Our prospective adoptive parents have to meet the criteria of the donor family.
Okay.
And that criteria may not be a hard and set rule, but if we have several families that they're going to choose from, let's say they have 3 families that they get to pick from, and they may choose a family who's younger than, let's say, 45 years old, or they'll tend to prefer married couples over single. So it's not an absolute rule, but it's what the donor family chooses is best for them.
So the donor family actually gets to select from a group of families that might be interested in it.
They will be able to.
Yeah. You know what, Daniel? I'm so excited about this program and what you brought to us today. Thank you for being our guest today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed our show today. Thank you so much for watching Joy in Our Town, where joy is always in the solution.